Hi everyone, this is Karak from ACG, and today I am puzzled, frustrated, and a bit nervous as I bring you the review for Magnetic Cage Closed, which has the same literary tempo as the same Tin Roof Rusted, and for some odd reason, I don't think that's entirely on accident. Magnetic Cage Closed is a first-person puzzle game, the likes of which spawned the great-granddaddy of them all, Portal. Of course, it's progeny Portal 2 and their close-kissing cousin, the Talus Principle, an ever-growing family of games in this genre that opens their arms wide to accept the new spawn. A game that replaces the finesse, guns, and powers of those past games with the guttural, chaotic, and ultimately fun as hell force known as magnetism. The thing that caused your mom and dad to get together in the back of a Chevy to paint the windows with condensation, and maybe even some of your siblings. You play a death row inmate in some futuristic prison that's been plucked from the rape factory and placed into a world of puzzles and moral questions, with nothing but a magnetic gun, a box of twisting coils, and rampy spool-up that just makes you know deep in your heart that your reproductive system cannot last because you're basically holding the world's smallest full-blown MRI machine at waist level. But let's be honest, it's not like anybody here really cares for you, because leading you from one puzzle death room to the next are two dueling voiceless entities known as the Warden on one hand and the Scientist on the other. Let's see how Mommy and Daddy treated me during this game. As always, this review is caffeinated, which means delivered to your fleshy audio capture devices at tachyon-like speeds. Let's do this. Graphics are up first. Magnetic Cage Closed does a fantastic job of creating both a dreary, rusted out, and abused atmosphere, at the same time merging technological advances into those same locations at every turn. Gone are the Tron-like stylings of, let's say, Portal, and replaced by the industrial steampunk theme that brings the claustrophobic feelings of Chronicles of Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay and sort of smashes them together forcibly with the metalworks of Dishonored or the Thief series, and the old ones, not that crappy new remake. Magnetic Cage Closed runs incredibly well on lesser machines as well, and more powerful machines alike, and though you're really constantly just being bombarded with room after room of insidiously dangerous life enders, the level design's excellent with some low resolution textures in some places, and many of the special effects will remind you a little bit more of Half-Life 1 instead of, say, Portal. It still looks good and does what it sets out to do, which is a melding of atmosphere and location without really reminding you that it's basically the equivalent of a terrible B-horror movie that you're playing within. Sound, music, and voice. First up is sound, and it's excellent, with death, life, lightning, fire, and choking of chlorine gas filling the failing lungs of your prisoner, all sounding really excellent. Everything from the rumble of steel containers that shuttle you to your next rectangle of life ending or back to your room, to the tumble and rumble of items as you try to toss a metal cube half a football field away. They all really just sound excellent. It's a great deal of special effects that are also used to solidify you in the feeling that you're in these enclosed or vastly open spaces, with reverb and echo used accordingly, and with correct sound and channel separation throughout the game. Just really liked the sound. Now, when it comes to the music, it's also great. There isn't a bunch here, but what is here somehow mends the slightly futuristic world vibe and its techno stylings with a grungy thrash of prison ambiance, which sounds great and weird probably, but it actually hits it off. It really does a good job. It's not soundtrack of the year or probably even the month, but it places importance on being interesting without being more interesting than the game itself. And it hits the notes perfectly. Even in times of quiet repose right before a door or panel opens, there's this cool hesitation to the music, like both you and it are breathing a big breath in, preparing for what's next. And of course, as always, that brings us to voice.
A marathon and a sprint. Take your time and learn the basics before you move on. Once the evaluation is over, you will have precious little time to learn.
Not a single scratch. Seems like the people upstairs really have made the basic evaluation module too easy. It used to be different.
Excellent. Both the Warden and the Scientist perform their lines with varying degrees of interesting symmetry that you might not notice on the first playthrough. There is enough subtlety that at times you sometimes wonder if one of them is pretending to be as harsh and hateful as they come across, but it's just sort of an act. while the constant fanciful verbal encouragement from the scientist is at times both vital and yet somewhat morally questionable as well. The interplay here tells a story and keeps the player interested in what's truly going on outside and regardless of the actual action. Gameplay. Like the teachings of an abusive parent, this game knows nothing of hugs or tousled hair after a good play or a pat on the ass. It's all backhands and pain. And success is met with your continued life, and that's pretty much it. As a first-person puzzle game, your job is to make it through each room using magnetism, which means the powers you wield are clumsier than other forces might be, resulting in both a more realistic feel to the gameplay than Portal and other games before it. Also, though, there's a subtle interplay of these forces. Pull a box and you get pulled forward, push something and you get pushed away, resulting in an interplay of forces that's never quite just input and output, but it's more input, extra output, oh shit, I just fell off a ledge into a bunch of spikes. Pushing and pulling boxes and using magnetism seems like it would be a fairly quick-to-grasp mechanic, but with a mixture of power levels, the worlds themselves having various items and places with their own magnetism, and some puzzles being 2 to 4 to 5 rooms long or tall, meant that every turn I was using and learning what I had learned and wondered about in the previous levels, and it's an almost perfect gameplay loop they have going here, with a couple missteps in some rooms that felt a bit too gung-ho in the luck moments for my taste. All throughout, the Warden reminds you of just how little you matter to the world. You're nothing more than a reset button waiting to be pushed for another prisoner to replace you. In fact, at times, he even forgets which prisoner you are, while the scientist continues to push you forward with questionable tactics that soon feel just as evil and misplaced and maligned as the Warden's. And it really is that duplicitous feeling that actually keeps you moving forward versus giving up on the 30th reset, because not only is the game's action interesting, but like the game itself, it offers a story that's mysteriously interesting to play through as well. And it's the phenomenal level design, absolutely phenomenal, that helps the game immensely and separates it from feeling like just another Portal clone. But don't get me wrong, at times this isn't a subtle impersonation by any means. In fact, it is at times Dane Cook of first-person puzzle games. However, in other ways, it's a stretching of the genre into new tellings. For example, there's just an insidiousness to some of the game. For instance, the scientist's questions can end up flaying your mind as rooms and puzzles meld together into one large tapestry of memories, and then she'll ask you a question that will require the separation of those memories for a specific answer. It's invigorating. As I leapt onto the answer to her question, as sure as a prom night is going to equal scoring, I was shocked to shit in penalty for my failed response, reminding me that my memory wasn't as good as I had confidently thought, and that wrong answered questions resonated through the game as I was funneled to what could effectively be called the idiot's room to test my ability and make sure I was even good enough to continue on. And though I never saw them, I always wondered if the other prisoners were just laughing at me whenever I failed. And that's where this game excels. You find yourself, despite all the abuse, wanting to continue, wanting to do better, to waiting at the door and counting the seconds before it turns green, telling you that it's time to enter. To enter what? The faildrome? The kill box? The rectangle of stabbiness and the square of fucked up mental questions? It didn't matter as long as I continued. There's a perfect melding of action and plot and strained and dirty reward that keep you going here, and it offers a fairly different game than the others before it. The success I felt at getting through a level was actually very valid and tangible, and even the moments where I was returned to my room for the night felt like they were rewards for a deadly job done well. Fun factorization. You know, I loved it. This is a game that feels like it could have been a carbon copy and just called it a day. But there's this interplay of puzzle and question that's delightful, delicious, and endearing, and keeps the world from being one long memory of jump puzzles. Additionally, the introspection I felt during prolonged play meant that the game was actually getting to me on a responsiveness level, asking me how far I would go and what I would do to get the right answer. See, that's what's odd. In the end, I was far more worried and thoughtful about the scientist levels and questioning than I was about the Warden, and it's that playing out of the numbness of constant threat that's so awesome here. You begin to just think, yeah, I get it, you're the bad guy when the Warden talks, but the subtlety of the scientist's risk and reward hints at caring. But actions that don't show it, that make the game what it is and make the game far more inviting to play through, is where I began to really see the subtlety there. There's different endings as well that can be had depending on your answers. So that's it. You've come to the end of the review. As you know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, and never talk about it again rating scale. At $14.99 on Steam, I feel that this is a perfectly valid purchase. One that will offer first-person puzzle fans the regard and respect that they are looking for while working past its not always skin-deep cloning of Portal and offering a game with a very unique world, atmosphere, and structure. So that's it for me. If you like the video, hit like. If you disliked it, hit dislike. Share it on Twitter if you can. Maybe go to Patreon, see if you can donate. Whatever. Peace out.